There are many teams in Zenless Zone Zero, but some stand out above the rest. And so let's talk about the best teams for each element in this video, both the premium and free-to-play versions, starting with the best fire team. So the best fire team would have to be, as of making this video, Soldier 11, Coletta, and Lucy. This is by far one of the best teams, not just for the fire element, but in the entire game. The team revolves around Soldier 11 dealing the majority of your damage with her kit, and is quite simple to play, revolving around this fire suppression mechanic that allows her basic attacks to deal increased fire damage, with her skill and ultimate also helping this. Now you'll also run Coletta. Coletta works well on this team for a few reasons. The first is that as per Soldier 11's additional ability, anytime there is another character with the same element, i.e. fire or faction, she'll deal an additional 10% fire damage, but it's the second part that's really good. See, whenever Soldier 11 attacks a stunned enemy, this fire damage buff is increased by 22.5%, which is so good. As remember, this is the pivotal part of her kit. And so where does Coletta fit into all of this? Well, she is a stun character, meaning she deals a bunch of dazed damage that will quickly stun the enemy, allowing Soldier 11 to get these important buffs. But that's not all. Coletta also has a very useful buff that is a part of her additional ability that will apply a debuff with her X special attack that will, while the enemy is stunned, your team's chain attacks will do 35% more damage to the target. Again, very nice. And just more damage to this already amazing team. Finally, we have Lucy, who completes this team and offers another buff that will grant the entire team a huge amount of attack based on Lucy's own attack. Now this is very nice and will help out Soldier 11 with her already high amounts of damage. And so that was by far the best fire premium team. But what about the free to play version? Well, it's quite similar. You just replace Coletta with Ben. So Ben is a defense character. However, in this team, he'll play a sort of stun sort of role. Now, he isn't as good as Coletta, obviously, but still does an okay job. He's also a fire character, so he'll activate that soldier buff. And he also has his own shield buff that can be pretty nice if you're having trouble surviving. Overall, the fire element is very strong with a very strong team. Definitely, if you have Soldier, use these teams. Next, we have electric teams. So right now, the best electric team is Anton, Grace, and Rena. So in this team, Anton is your main DPS. Now, I know what you're thinking. This guy is just a 4-star. Is this really the best electric team? And well, I would say yes, because unfortunately right now we have no S rank main DPS electric character. Perhaps in the future, maybe 1.1, we'll get one, but for now, Anton is the best. And while he is just an A rank, he's pretty good. His kit mainly revolves around his burst mode and dealing a ton of electric damage while in this mode, especially with his additional ability that will for every 4 critical hits while in this burst mode, the next attack against shocked enemies will deal another bout of shock damage to the enemy. So this is what he revolves around, and it's his teammates that will help him out with this. Firstly, Grace. So Grace is the best at applying shock anomaly to enemies as fast as possible, which works very well with Anton, as a majority of his damage, like I mentioned, comes from enemies being shocked, and so Grace is the best pick. Finally, you have Rena. Now Rena, unlike Grace, who is the anomaly applier, Rena is your buffer. She'll buff Anton to make sure he deals the maximum amount of damage possible. So she firstly will increase the shock duration of the enemies by 3 seconds. Again, very good for Anton, as like we've mentioned before, this is where a majority of his damage is coming from. She'll also provide a flat 10% increase in electric damage for the party, but her biggest buff would have to be her pen buff. That can potentially be a 30% increase in pen ratio, which is a crazy increase. So definitely use these characters if you get the chance. Now for the free-to-play team, it's quite different. So instead of Grace, you should run Unbi, as there's a few reasons for this. Unbi is an electric character, so you also gain the buff for Anton. And secondly, while she doesn't apply electric as good as Grace, she is an okay alternative. And she does apply daze much better, so she can get the enemy stunned, so Anton can deal a ton of damage. So quite nice. As for Rena, there really isn't any alternative. The only potential other support that's okay would be Lucy. Now Lucy's not electric, however she does have a decent buff that will massively increase Anton's attack, which is quite nice to have on this team. Next up we have the ice teams, starting with Ellen, Lycaon and Sokaku. So this team revolves around Ellen, who is your main DPS and deals a ton of damage. Like many other teams, if there is another ice character on the team, then she'll be granted a buff that will increase her ice damage every time she deals ice damage, stacking up to 10 times. This is incredibly good and cements herself as one of the best damage dealers in the game. But what's really special about this ice team is her teammates. So Lycaon is a stun based character who has some of the best synergies with Ellen right now. The big reason why he's so good is that his buff, that whenever he uses his X special attack, it will decrease the enemy's ice damage resistance by 25% for 30 seconds. Now this is just insane. This will be a very good ability if it was just for 10 seconds or 20 seconds, but the fact that it lasts for 30 seconds means that you can pretty much keep this up for the entire fight, which is crazy good. But that's not all. See, when Lycaon attacks a stun enemy, the enemy's stun damage multiplier will be increased by 35%, which will further increase the team's damage against stunned enemies. Again, very nice. Now Sokaku rounds his team off by, you guessed it, bringing more buffs. So the big buff he brings is a huge attack boost, potentially 1000 whenever you use a chain attack. Sokaku can also bring an impressive 20% ice damage buff to Ellen, further increasing her damage. So yeah, this is by far the strongest ice team and just team in general right now, so definitely give this a try. As for the free-to-play version, there is only 3 ice characters right now, so the only sort of person you can replace is Lycaon for someone like Anbi, as Anbi is also a stun character, and so can sort of replace Lycaon, albeit a bad replacement. But now let's move on to the physical teams. So this is where it gets interesting, as unlike the previous 3 teams, pinning down the best physical team is a lot harder, as there really isn't one. But if I had to pick, it would be Nekomata, Anbi and Nicole. Nekomata is your main DPS who, funnily enough, is the only physical damage member in this team, which may seem a bit weird, but that's because of the 4 physical characters in the game right now. 3 of them are attackers, including Nekomata, so you're probably not going to be running more than one on your team. And the other character is Piper, who is an anomaly character but requires a lot of time on the field, so she doesn't work super well with Nekomata. So that's why we're going to be running characters like Anbi and Nicole instead. But now let's talk about this team. So firstly, Nekomata is a very competent physical attacker that when another character shares the same element or faction and they inflict assault on the enemy, her X special attack will gain a large 35% damage buff that stacks up to 2 times. Now this is very nice and makes her an especially strong physical damage dealer, as well as her core passive that will further grant a 30% damage buff when she dodge counters or quick assists. Now alongside her you also have Anbi. Anbi will be your stunner who will line up the team for fast chain attacks, and if Nekomata has her M1, Anbi will be especially important in triggering this. Now lastly we run Nicole here. This is mainly because she'll activate Nekomata's additional ability as she's from the same faction, but also because Nicole can provide a very nice defense shred with a core passive. It works very well with Nekomata. Now that's the premium team. As for the free-to-play team, there isn't really a good one. If you replace Nekomata with, say, Corinne, you'll have to replace the other members in order to trigger her additional ability, which is very hard to do. And if you replace Nekomata with, let's say, Billy, you'll trigger the additional ability due to Billy being the same faction as Nicole. However, Billy is just not that good to run. So honestly, for the physical teams, if you don't have Nekomata, then it's better not to run one. Maybe in the future when we'll get more physical characters, then there will be a better team, but as of right now, there's not many good options. Finally, we have our Ether teams. Now there isn't much to choose from as there are only 2 Ether characters, Zhu Yuan and Nicole. Alongside these 2, running Anbi is also a great option. Now, Zhu Yuan is someone who we get to play during the story and is very fun to play. She is fast paced, deals a ton of damage, and will act as your main damage dealer. She deals incredible amounts of ether damage, and by being paired up with Nicole, she gets the additional ability of getting 30% crit rate after X special attacking, chain attacking, or using her ultimate. This is really good. As long as you keep this up, you don't have to worry about building too much crit rate on her. She'll also get, with her core passive, a very nice 20% damage buff to her enhanced shot shells, and this will be increased by another 20% when the enemy is stunned. This is why we run Unbe with her. Nicole is also ran. She has some important buffs for the team, including an impressive 25% more ether damage for the team whenever her core passive is activated, which, speaking of, will apply a 20% defense shred on the enemy. So overall, a very decent team considering the lack of options. As for the free-to-play version, there really isn't one, as Zhu Yuan is the only ether main damage dealer at the moment. So yeah, that was the best teams for each element currently in the game. Now this list is very subject to change as more and more characters get released, so I'll definitely be doing another video once more and more characters get released. But now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.